Hello and welcome back to my series of podcasts about people with purpose. And on today's episode, I'm joined by Sandra of Body Mind Solutions, which is a wellness therapy centre based in Rainham Kent. With over 30 years experience as a highly qualified physiotherapist, trained at King's College Hospital, no less, Sandra is also qualified as a clinical hypnotherapist, a psychological therapist, a mentor, and is also a fully qualified Pilates instructor too. Sandra's unique approach is very much about understanding how the unconscious stresses can have an adverse impact on physical health, as well as our emotional well-being. And by aligning her experience and qualifications together, her purpose is really clear. In her words, it's helping people understand how to clear their mind, free their body, and feed their soul to bring about a healthier, happier, and productive life. In other words, moving from stress to success, which I think it's pretty safe to say that that's something many people really need right now. So, Sandra, I've been really looking forward to this one. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And how are you feeling today?
It's great to be here, Graham. Thank you for inviting me. It's really lovely. Yeah, all good, thank you. All good. Just
Brilliant.
moving through another lockdown that's coming ahead of us, but it's all good. We're working ahead of that. So staying positive and hopefully we'll get everything up and running as we want to.
Brilliant. That's so good to hear because there is a lot of negativity about. So it's great to have that and share some of that positivity around the sort of business community and anyone else that watches it. So just give yourself a little bit of an intro. I've introduced you, but just sort of share with anybody watching, listening. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, how you got to be where you are now. That would be fantastic.
I trained as a physiotherapist, as I say, back in the 80s. I qualified, and a long time ago now, and spent a lot of time working, in healthcare. I spent some time as a manager as well in the NHS, but came back to work with clients a number of years ago. And one of the things that I discovered working from a very physical perspective was that there was other reasons why people weren't getting better with some of the
Mhm.
physical things that they were presenting with. So that's what's inspired me really to go off and learn a little bit more about our emotions and how we can influence our emotions and how our emotions influence our physical health, particularly with pain, which obviously as a physio is one of the things that you see on a
Mm.
daily basis. So that's kind of where my interest started. And then I think as time's gone on, I've kind of realised and recognised that actually many of us, in fact, pretty much all of us, could do with understanding that unconscious processing a little better so that we can live life as we want to. Because so often we find, much of what we do is an unconscious process. We don't think about everything that we do. There's lots of things that drive us automatically, and consequently, we can sometimes find ourselves in the place that we don't want to be, or we're thinking things and feeling things we don't want to feel. And when we get into that situation, it can obviously make us feel more stressed. And very often we don't actually recognize it as stress, but we just know we don't like where we
Right.
are at that point in time.
And you say that you discovered this because obviously you were working from a physiotherapy perspective, that you found this idea that actually their mental being, you say the programming, I think the word you
Hmm.
used, prevented them from actually recovering
Hmm.
promptly or at all, in fact.
Yeah, quite often as a physio, you spend quite a lot of time with your clients over a period of weeks, and you really do begin
Yeah.
to understand them and spend quite a lot of time talking to them as you're working with them.
Hmm.
And so you recognise some of the signs when people's emotions aren't, they're not necessarily in a good place, and you also see patterns with regards to how some people's natural thought processing is very much in a negative place. It's from
Mm.
a fear base, so they're worrying about things quite often, and they see things from a more fearful position rather than seeing things from a positive place. It's not just about positive thinking, it's just about understanding that we learn these patterns when we're quite young quite often, and recognizing that our emotions will actually, if you're in that negative state, actually make pain worse. Particularly is the area
Wow.
that I was looking at, because when our stress response is switched on, firstly, our muscles will tighten up, And well, you know, we all know the physical changes that happen when we feel more stressed. We know that our heart rate increases, we know that our breathing rate changes. So we know that physical changes happen when our emotions are in a different state. So just from a physical perspective, we can see that it's going to impact on how somebody, so if you're working to try and relax somebody's muscles, but underneath there's a trigger that's creating tension within them, you find that you do a good job of helping them move again, and next week they come back in and everything's tightened up again. So you start asking the questions, why is this happening? What's behind it? Yeah. I mean, it
So
is much more widely recognised that if somebody's got persistent pain, we need to look at their emotions. And it's recognised that obviously if somebody's in pain, it's actually going to take them into that stress response anyway, because automatically your body recognises that, you know, something, pain means danger. So automatically, if someone's in pain for a long period of time, then their stress response is going to be more elevated. But I look at it from a slightly different place and to say, well, actually, maybe that's why the pain's starting in the first place, because they're already in this elevated stress response to start with. And the body connects almost with the emotion of the pain, emotional pain, with physical presentations.
so I guess it's almost amplifying the problem
Yeah.
because of their mindset.
Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes, you know, it can actually be that there may be a minor sort of physical injury, or as we might call it, dysfunction. But because of the way that the body perceives the situation, it it intensifies the problem. And it's very much about that word perception.
Mm. Yeah, that's really interesting. Did something that just sort of occurred to me. I mean, obviously, a lot of people would resort to painkillers and things like that. I'm assuming that that's something that you avoid and help people advise them on.
Well, painkillers have got their place, absolutely, and you know they can help in the early stages of acute pain to facilitate more normal movement if you're completely sort of stuck, as it were. But lengthy prescription of painkillers is not highly recommended. We need to look and understand, why is that problem persisting? And there's new guidelines coming out fairly soon about chronic persistent pain, and how and what kind of medication should be used. So I think things are going to be shifting quite considerably when they're published. They're in consultation stage at the moment, because many people have only been able to be offered strong medications in the past, and in actual fact they don't have huge, there's not evidence to suggest it has huge influence on the situation. So thankfully they're looking and saying, okay, well, what else can we do? And they are recommending that we do begin to spend more time looking at psychological side of things with this kind of client. And certainly from a back pain perspective, the national clinical guidelines do recommend sort of psychological intervention. The
Mm.
problem and the difficulty that we sometimes have is that people believe, if you start to say, oh well, we need to send you to somebody to help how you're thinking, they go, well, I'm not imagining this pain, it's real. And we know it is real. The pain is definitely real, but we have to understand that the processing of our unconscious and the emotions that we feel can be amplifying that, as you use that word, that's a great word, amplifying that sensation, and can be
Yeah.
continuing for that message to be sent out the whole time.
Is it common for physiotherapy to sort of consider this, or are you saying this is a fairly new? So, for what I'm saying is that, do you know other physiotherapists that could benefit from this kind of skill set as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's certainly becoming more common for certain physios and it would tend to be like the general physios probably won't manage these clients. They'll refer them on to somebody else
Mhm.
if they recognise that there's underlying sort of issues that need to be looked at from a psychological perspective. And there are some programs that are running that help people to begin to look at some of their emotions and deal with them in a slightly more positive way. The bias, very much so from my understanding with a lot of these programs, is that they're looking at helping people to understand the emotions that are arising from having the pain. Because clearly you would feel very distressed if you
Sure.
had emotional pain, and recognizing that it's important to include things like relaxation and stuff like that to be able to deal with the situation. But I'm kind of in the process of really trying to understand exactly the difference between what I do and what's already out there, because, as I say, from what I can understand so far, I tend to look at what emotions did you have before the pain started,
Hmm.
as opposed to what emotions have you got because the pain is there. And I find by looking at that, we can do a lot more to switch off the pain and get to the root of the problem.
Mm, so
Um,
you're
I'm not saying
almost.
that's, certainly what's already running is doing a great job and it's definitely impacting, but I believe that we can do, and quite often, I believe if we look at these things at an early stage, we can actually prevent the problems happening in the first place. And so, I mean, it is advocated early intervention from this perspective is a good idea. What I'm looking at though at the moment is training more physios in this approach, and we've had an overwhelming interest. I'm running a course with another colleague who's in Australia, and we're running our pilot starting from next week. And there's been lots of people really keen to do it, so there's definitely an appetite out there, and I think there's an understanding. But I don't believe that many of the physios have got the skill set to be able to do it, and that's what I
Right.
want to share a little bit more with people. So.
Cool. So this course that you're running this is a new thing that you're doing?
Yeah, yeah. Again, it's just helping people to understand that basic concept that we talked about, how the stress, unconscious stress response that could be triggered already before people present with pain, and how best to deal with that, how to help the client understand it from the perspective that's going to get them on board, that they're going to address some of these issues rather than just believing it's a completely physical entity.
Wow. So if I was a physio myself now, how would I find out about this workshop or this training program that you're doing?
Well, like I say, we're running a pilot at the moment. So as of hopefully January time, we're going to be starting the actual real thing. There will be details coming out on my website. It's not there at this point in time, as I say, because it's still in the pilot form.
It's still the
But if anybody is interested, or if they know any physios that are interested, do contact me through my website or my email address, and I can happily put them on the list to be circulated more information. There will be stuff going out on LinkedIn and Facebook as well once we've set the date for January.
fantastic. I'll ask you that question again, and we can put the details up on the actual video and the show notes and stuff as well. So that's
Mm.
fantastic. So I mean, you've been running yourself this business for 6 years, is that right?
Yeah, as it stands at the moment, yes. I mean, I've been
Yeah.
doing the different elements of work for quite a lot longer, but I was
Yeah.
doing them in all separate places. But I brought it together in 6 years ago into a one unit, because I was kind of hiring space in different places and doing different things. So yeah, the last 6 years I've just been in Rainham.
Fantastic. And is it just you, or do you have people that you work with? Do you have a small team? Or you mentioned somebody in Australia.
Yeah, no, it's just me. No, I've connected with a lady in Australia literally through a LinkedIn connection.
Brilliant.
We had similar interests, and then we had a one-to-one online and just connected through that. So we're collaborating. I'm probably doing more work in collaboration with other people,
Mhm.
rather than having other people working with me. So yeah, at the moment it's just me.
And I guess obviously that's the last 6 years, but um, just more recent times. We can talk about COVID in a bit, but what's been the main drive the last sort of 12 months for you? What's been happening? What's been going on with the business?
Yeah. So, like I said, I mean, I do a lot of work with paying clients, but I also do see other people who are presenting with stress. So
Hmm.
they may not necessarily present, pain might not be an element to their problem. And what I've been doing certainly over the lockdown period, where we had all that time when we were working online, I was delivering a course called From Stress to Success,
Hmm.
helping people to understand, firstly, what their success means to them, because obviously success is different for everybody.
Very true.
um, and also to help people understand again this unconscious process of stress and how we can take the reins of that. And as one of my clients said, she felt like she got back in the driving seat of life after she did
Brilliant.
that course, which is I've stolen that little phrase from her, and I now use that as part of my as part of my promotion, because I think that is absolutely what it helps people do.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And that's been the last sort of 12 months. Let's do it now whilst we're in on that subject. COVID, how did it affect you? Because I know you do Pilates classes and all those
Yeah,
kinds of things.
absolutely. So that was one of the things that I did online,
Mhm.
and all my studio classes I had to stop. So I literally did what everyone else did really, moved across to Zoom, and it's gone really well. Everybody loves the classes. So I do 3 classes a week, and yeah, so I've got probably about 30 people attending my Zoom classes now.
Wow.
I'd love more people to. Before we had COVID, and I did the studio classes, I have to say I was very lucky that they were always well subscribed, and I very rarely needed to advertise or promote them, because when somebody happened to leave for whatever reason, somebody came along and filled the space. And I was limited on numbers by the space that I had.
Yeah.
Now it's on Zoom. I have much more capacity, so I'm open to encouraging more people to join in. And it's great that I can get, the reach of is greater, obviously.
Mm.
Slightly different, obviously, setup than when people come personally to the class, but it's great that people, especially in the winter, people are loving it. They're not having to turn out in the evening on a dark, rainy night, and they can just, you know, sit there in their living room and do their Pilates class. So it is going really well. So that's, for me, that's one of the good things that's come out of, the previous lockdown, really, is
Yeah.
that, we've shifted, and it's working really well. So yeah, so that's a good thing. I think the other thing that I did, obviously, I did do some therapy work online. Couldn't do any of the physio work as such, apart from give
No.
people advice. But certainly from the sort of psychological therapies, I managed to deliver that online as well, where it's needed. So it's great that it can still, offer help and support to people in that way too.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, did you start the classes up again physically, or have you just
No, I
remained
was
online?
due to look at starting them in October, but then everything started going downhill again. So I said, well, I think we're just going to carry on as we are. And most people were kind of happy with that at the time anyway. That, there's many people that saying, yeah, we'd like to come back to classes. But when I actually asked them if they would, they probably were, well, actually, I think I'd rather not anyway at the moment. So yeah, and now I think it's probably going to be carrying on online and continuing that in the long term anyway.
Yeah.
But we may look at studio classes obviously in the new year, depending on what's happening.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's a crazy time, but it's about keeping focused, keeping positive, and pivoting, leveraging. We hear those terms all the time at the moment, but it's so true. You've got
yeah.
to sort of, and as you say, you people want to come back to the classes, but then when it actually is put up, you're like, actually, you know what? I might just leave that for a little bit longer anyway. So
Hmm,
yeah,
absolutely. And because they're enjoying the online stuff anyway, they're saying, it's okay. And a number of people said that they would prefer to come and continue with them anyway. So I'm definitely going to carry on with those
yeah,
regardless. So yeah,
fantastic.
good thing.
That's great. I mean, I'm really impressed the fact that you're doing this pretty much on your own. But has there anybody else kind of helped you along the way? Any sort of key people or mentors that's kind of inspired you to sort of carry on this route?
Oh gosh, it's really hard to sort of specifically pinpoint, just one person or whatever. But I've been really fortunate throughout my whole career, I think, to have people around me supporting me. When I was working in the NHS, I always had really good supportive managers. Moving out into working on your own, there's some great networks that I've been involved with that has helped and supported me along the way. There's the ABC networks, which has been great. There's the Women in Business Network, which is great as well. I've recently become more involved with FSB. That's good. There's the Therapist Network. There's the Wellness HQ. So there's just been lots of people along the way that have definitely sort of helped. Because I think when you're on your own, it's great that you've got, understanding of other people in your similar situation. And I'm sorry if I've left anybody out along the way there. But yeah, I think that's, when you're working in a job, you've got the structure of an organization, and your status, if you like, is created for you by that organization.
Yeah.
And I think when you move to working on your own, it's a different place, and it can feel quite a lonely place.
Mm,
And to create your sort of, almost like you've got to create your own identity again. And when you're just trying to do that on your own without any feedback from anybody, it can be quite disorientating sometimes. Because, like, when you're working with a manager, they go, yeah, that's great, carry on with that. Or even if you're working with a team and you're managing the team, there's feedback from them about where you're going and what you're doing. But you don't necessarily have that when you're on your own, which is why it's great, I think, to be involved in networks and involved in, collaborations and things like that, because it gives you that support.
Yeah, you're so right. And it comes up time and time again when I've been doing these chats, that everybody says the same thing, that having that support group around you, that networking, it replaces a lot of that almost like the office banter in certain circumstances, but
Hmm.
also just nice to throw your ideas and bounce ideas off each other, and get a little bit of reassurance, or even coaching, or whatever it is. But I think the networking has certainly kept me going through a lot of the lockdowns, and obviously we've talked a little bit about what your past and how you got to where you are. What are you doing right now? Obviously, you've got this beta testing this new training program, online Pilates. What else are you doing at the moment? Especially now we've had the recent announcement that we're going into another lockdown.
Yeah. Well, I think as far as I'm aware, at this point in time, I still will be seeing some clients at the studio, obviously with
Mhm.
all the risk assessments. And if the need arises, if people don't want to travel, then I can still offer things, online. So that element of things is still running along. I'm currently working on another collaboration, which is in the pipeline. Want to be able to support young people as
Mm.
well. And I'll give you more details once that's a little bit more firmed up, because at the moment that's still kind of
Ooh,
very much in discussion stages. So I'm going to wait and see how that develops. But certainly being able to influence the well-being of young people and helping them to
yeah.
understand this message, because many of the clients that I see tend to be kind of midlife women, a bit like me, I suppose, which is why they're drawn towards me, I suppose. And some people I've worked with even into their sort of 70s, where we've done some of this change around how they're thinking, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, wish I'd learned this when I was younger. Wish I could
Mm,
have understood this when I was, much younger." And they appreciate so much the influence and the changes that it's brought. So for me, helping young people is really important. I'm also going to be doing some work with the Street Soccer Foundation schools program. So I'm a mentor for them, but that's been on hold since lockdown
yeah.
started. So unfortunately, that we just started a program at the beginning of the year, but that's been on hold. So we're hoping to be moving forward with that come next year. But again, who knows
Mm.
what's going on with that. So we're just waiting to hear how that's going to roll out. So yeah, there's a number of other things sort of in the pipeline, should I say? So watch this
Yeah,
space.
no, that's fine. It's an excuse to get you back on again at some point,
Yeah,
and you
I'll
can
keep you
sort of
posted. I'll
yeah,
keep you.
definitely. But you mentioned Street Soccer Foundation. I mean, those what they do is fantastic. I've got a lot of time for them as a charity as well. They do a lot, and it's touch wood that you're able to sort of progress that, because yeah, they're good guys, very much
Yeah,
so.
yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, the work that Keith does there is absolutely fabulous,
Yeah,
and it's moving across the country in the foundations with regards to the sort of the older children, or the sort of potentially people that are at risk of being homeless, and we're
yeah.
looking at helping people at an earlier stage to help people avoid those problems later on.
Mm. So, I mean, at the moment as well, you what is the biggest thing that people come to you for, or is it sort of so diverse that you haven't got one particular area? But what are you seeing the most of at this time?
I think, like you say, it does vary, and it is quite diverse. Certainly, from a pain perspective, back pain is probably one of the most common things that present. Back and neck pain is one of the most common things that present to me. But if we're looking at how stress might present itself, kind of bring it down into three categories. Into that, so how might it present physically? So it might physically present as with pain, tight muscles, migraines. You might be seeing people that have got things like irritable bowel and other sort of physical things like skin irritations, psoriasis, those kind of things. And I'm not saying that there's things that I specifically help with, but it indicates that there's a need for change under there. So they might present with one of the other things. And when you see all these other things as well that they've got, we think, okay, hang on, there's definitely some need for addressing stress in this situation. So they might present physically. They may present with mood changes. So they're just not happy how they feel at that point in time. So there may be anxiety. They might be feeling more irritable, more angry, or even overwhelmed with what's going on at the moment. They might just be fed up of feeling like they're a worrier all the time, and they want to be able to
Mhm.
shift things. But pretty much they feel that I want to change things, but they can't. So that's kind of where they come to me for. Or it may be that they're just recognizing their experience of life isn't how they want it to be. So it may be that what's presenting to them is that they're just feeling stuck. They can't move on. They're trying to get things done, but nothing happens. Nothing. They're procrastinating. And they might just be feeling fearful of trying new things, but they're not getting to where they want to be. And so life just doesn't feel as fun as it should be. And they've just had enough of it. So they're looking at finding a way to move beyond it, basically. So yeah, so it kind of presents in those three different sort of categories.
Okay, and how do people find you? Do you get found on Google, or do you get referrals, or off of like therapist directories, those kinds of things? Which is where do you see most of the activity from?
Most of the people that I see are recommendations or referrals.
Yeah,
I am registered in directories and things like that. And occasionally I will get referrals through that. But the majority of the people that I see are people that have seen me already, not
yeah,
them, but somebody's seen them that they know, so it's a recommendation. Which is, good, because people already come feeling comfortable,
mm,
and there's an element of trust already because they know that somebody they've seen has had a good result working with me. So yeah.
yeah. No, that's good. That's great to hear.
Mm.
And sort of, kind of connected. Well, still in the now. What would your, top tip, or the top tips would be right this moment in time? We've got a second lockdown. We've got a lot of people that are feeling the pressure financially. What advice would what's your words of wisdom?
Okay, so
Big
in
question.
such times, the thing that I find most people have challenges with is uncertainty.
Right.
And not knowing how things are going to work out creates a lot of stress for people. Sometimes it's that they can't find the solution, but most times when I ask people about uncertainty, people are worrying about things that actually they don't know if they're going to happen or not.
Mhm.
So it's the what ifs and the are buts that kind of keep running around in your head. And I ask them the question, so generally when something difficult does arise, can you deal with it? Have you got the skills to be able to, to deal with it in that given situation? And very often people say, well, yeah, I can. When it's presented to me, the actual difficulty, I can go, okay, I'm going to work this out. But it is about drawing your attention into the present moment
Mhm.
and focusing on what you can control. I think is vitally important, really, because our mind can wander off with all the, as I say, what ifs about what might happen, and that's putting ourselves into stress response when we don't actually need to, because we don't know if that's going to be a problem. And I have a system that I use, that I work through with people to help them, become aware of what's going on. I call it the appear system. So basically, if you just become aware of why are you feeling like you're feeling, become aware of what's going on, and if you can focus on that, the awareness and acknowledgement of that in the first place helps, because very often we get this stress feeling but we don't really know what am I worrying about. So it's about becoming aware about something. Then we look at the purpose for change. We look at how we can change our perception of this situation. So does it really mean that is the case? Is that the truth? Do you know it to be the truth? Or can we change that situation? And then we begin to look at, okay, so how would you prefer to feel about this? Let's focus on that, because it's very much about what you find is what you focus on. So that's why I say, if you're focusing on uncertainty, you'll feel more uncertain. Therefore, it's important to focus on what you want to feel, which is more certainty. Bring your attention into things in your life that do create more certainty around you. We then move on to look at, okay, what action can you take? What actions can you take that will bring that more certainty to you at the time? And then perhaps look at the R, which is resources. So look at what other support you might need to help you to bring you to that place that you want to feel. So that's kind of the approach that I generally take with people, to help them focus their attention into what's creating that discord, that feeling that you don't like.
That's fantastic. Do you find that people resist it at all in any way?
Yeah, quite often. Um,
Mm,
um, but generally, when people come for help, they are open to,
yeah.
to working. So they are keen to find out a way. But the resistance often is an unconscious resistance.
Mm,
And this is why it's difficult to change, because our unconscious believes it's actually better for us not to change. Because if it believed it was better to change, it would allow you to do that.
exactly.
So it's about understanding what that pattern is, what that process is, what purpose that program has been serving you in the past, and asking, is it serving you any benefit now? So if it isn't, that is one step towards removing the resistance to change.
Brilliant. It's a very common thing that I hear a lot about the whole um, focusing on the things that we can effect change to, and it's easily said than done though. That I think that's the point that I'm making. Is I believe in that. I feel that if I'm positive and I focus on the things that I want rather than the things that I don't want,
Mm.
then you see more of it. But
Mm.
it's easier said than done to actually get into that state.
Absolutely. And that's because your unconscious processing, as I said, believes it's better to stay as you were.
Mm,
And that's where the sort of intervention that I do with people actually makes a difference. So I use a technique called brain working recursive therapy, which helps change that programming. And so it becomes more of a natural response to behave how you want to, rather than having to think through, I want to feel differently and I'm going to focus on this and I am going to feel this. It becomes just that's what you do because it's an unconscious pattern. So basically, it reprograms that. What's behind all of these difficulties is your unconscious belief that there is danger, or consequently fearful of of the situation that you're thinking about. So what
mm,
we do is help, again, look at, is it beneficial to maintain that fear? Is it beneficial to maintain that belief? And firstly, did you even know it was there? Most of the times people don't. um, so once we've uncovered it, we can then deal with that fear and say, okay, do you want to feel differently about it? Yes. Okay, well, let's help you feel that. And so that's when I'll use the technique to change their bodies or their brain's perception of the situation. And that perception, as I said right at the beginning, is the key to being able to feel differently about it. And so that's sometimes why, if it is a struggle to make those changes, that's when it's go find someone that can help you change it.
yeah.
And that's where the resistance is, because people think,
Mm,
well, I should just be able to change my mind myself. And it's
mhm.
like, well, yeah, if I wanted to build a house, maybe I could go on YouTube and look how to do it, but I wouldn't probably get a very good house at the end of it. So yes, there's certain things that we do need support with to be able to make the changes.
Yeah.
And I believe that very much, that people's perception of the situation is shifting. So people are thinking, yes, it is more acceptable to go and have some help change the situation. And I always give the example of, like, I've been treating people's backs for years and years and years. So someone gets back pain, they come in now and they go, I've got back pain, I don't like this, please will you change it and help me change it? They don't expect to resolve it on their own. Sometimes they might try a few things, a few exercises to get rid of it, but if it doesn't go, they come along and see me. But there's still a huge resistance to do that, I think, just because people's expectations of what it involves.
Mhm.
And if you look back, sort of, a couple of generations ago, people probably wouldn't have gone and had help for their back unless they were severely in difficulty. Many people just used to put up with it and get on with life, and then become miserable because they're in pain, or find they can't do things because they're in pain. And whereas now I think it's much more acceptable we do that. And what I'm hoping is that as time moves on, people will begin to feel it's just completely normal to say, I'm not feeling how I want to feel, I'm going to go and have someone help me fix that.
Mm.
And that would be such a great place to be in.
Yeah, I mean that's something that I might come back to in a moment, about the future. But something that I just kind of wanted to sort of touch on was the resistance thing, and especially from my perspective, as you know, I'm an advocate for men's mental health myself, and there's even more resistance with men. Do you see that? Do you see that there's
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't know if it's just because I'm a woman, because some men might prefer to go and see a guide to do therapy with. But yeah, I would say 90% of the work I do is with women for the emotional psychological work. Yeah. I do occasionally see men, but they seem more reluctant, I should say, to to go, yeah, I need help.
It's an interesting one because
Mm.
I was probably in the same camp as that. And then until I realized, until I learned myself and had help from other people, that it wasn't such a big deal.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you can still be strong, and you can still be that, yeah, stiff upper lip, but you still share some of those issues and vulnerabilities to
Mm.
get the right help to get you back onto track. And it's I think it's an important message. It's something I like to talk about.
Absolutely, absolutely. And facing your vulnerabilities is one of the strongest things you can do. And when people understand that, and they feel the strength that they get from facing those vulnerabilities,
Mm.
they recognize actually that is the strong thing to do. And like you say, until you've experienced that, you can't necessarily believe it, perhaps.
Yeah.
But hopefully the message will start, especially with all the kind of work that you're doing, with the charity that you're involved with. Hopefully men will begin to understand that. And I think women do seem to say, oh, it's okay. And I'm not doing a sexist thing, but
No, 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 not at all.
just, just naturally the way that women seem more, and I'm just looking at the stats, the stats say that women will seek help for if they're not feeling how they want to feel, men just don't.
Yeah, it's so true. And as you say, that strong men helped me, and what they believe in, and as soon as you could start opening up, and you started to feel that cathartic experience of actually being, do you know what? It's nothing to be fearful of. And as you say, and I really like that point about, actually, it is actually the strongest thing to do, is to actually say, look, this happened to me, and I'm not dealing with it very well. And it feeds itself. Where I was a few years ago to where I am now is because I went for help. I asked for help. And I think that's just, a really important message to make.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think to recognize that it's not actually you as a person,
Mm.
it's how your brain has dealt with what it's experienced that needs the help.
Yeah.
And I think recognizing that you as the person is a different entity, if you like, than the
Mhm.
brain processing that goes on, and being able to kind of almost detach that from a scientific point of view can sometimes help people sign up to it a little bit more and recognize that actually, this program, the way that your brain's taken on board what's gone on around you, is making you a person that you're not really, who you're not really,
Mm.
and changing that can help. And there's a lovely quote that I always like to use, which is, I don't know if I'll get it all in the right order, but it's basically about, journey's not so much about becoming anything. Maybe the journey's more about unbecoming everything that's not really you, so that you can be the person you're truly meant to be.
Oh, I like that. I do like that.
Yeah.
That's really
And
good.
yeah, and it's like clearing out a cupboard that's collected bits along the way that you don't need. Just get rid of it.
Talking about that, I actually did that last, or the beginning of the year. I did the whole Marie Kondo thing. Have you heard of her? When
Oh
she
yes, yeah, yeah,
empties out all the wardrobe. And do you know what? It did actually feel quite good to just get rid of loads of stuff that I just have no need for or no use for. It's
yeah.
an interesting concept. That, sorry, we've digressed then, but
No, no, not at all. No, absolutely. Yeah.
brilliant. Um, so in terms of that's great. Actually, that quote really got to me a little bit. That's really good. What's next for you though? What's, obviously you've got the training program to sort of help other physios sort of understand all of this. But
Yeah.
where do you see yourself going? Where do you see the business going as such?
Um, well, I think very much, obviously the business will still keep running with regards to the one-to-one clients, but my mission very much is to get that message out to a wider audience
Mm.
and to help more people understand that it's okay to, to focus on these things. And it's really important. And I do believe that it can have an impact, just not just on us as individuals, but on us as a society as well. Because I believe that much of the health issues that we have a huge component of sort of our stress activation behind them. And not all, obviously, but there is a huge element to that. So it can have a huge impact on health. It can have a huge impact on everybody's belief about themselves. So, how much we can achieve in education, the kind of behaviour that might or might not elicit criminal activity, the kind of success that we have in our own relationships and in our own work. All of this can be dictated to by taming, if you like, or mastering that stress response. Can have a huge impact, and helping people and every individual to optimize, if you like, their own abilities by believing in themselves.
Mm. I mean, it's
Not everybody gets the chance of understanding that from an early age, and I think it's vital that we do, because it can, as I say, it can have a huge impact on us socially, emotionally, and physically.
yeah, and that again, that goes back to you saying that you're looking to do much more with younger generations
Yeah, so with young people, and looking at more opportunities just to get that message out there, really. One of the things I've been doing for a while is writing a book, which
oh
still need to get that finished.
oh
So then, being able to promote that would be a good thing. So yeah, so I'm looking at more opportunities where what I do is working, as I say, with a bigger audience. Yeah, and like I say, I'll keep you posted on the next thing that I'm working on. And
definitely, yeah,
once I've got
it's
a bit more concrete plans on that, I'll come back and let you know what's happening about it.
brilliant. I think everybody would like to hear that. It sounds quite exciting anyway, that what you're doing. And I think the idea of the message that you're promoting, maybe not the right word, but the message that you're trying to get out there is a massively important one. I see it from my perspective, being a man's perspective. There's so much more that needs to be done,
Hmm.
but I think what you're doing is just, it's amazing that you've got this passion and drive to actually take it to the masses, so to speak.
Yeah,
That's
well,
really good.
well, certainly thank you for the opportunity, because I think, as I say, the work you do is amazing as well. Supporting businesses, because I know that you do a lot of business supporting and business mentoring, and giving other businesses the opportunity to be able to share their message as well, which is fabulous. Thank you. I'm really looking forward to the opportunity of you doing the photo shoot with
Yeah,
me as well. So hopefully, once all the lockdown things are out the way again, we can negotiate that. And
definitely.
yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, no, you're welcome, and thank you for coming on today. I mean, just before we kind of wrap things up, I just wanted to how do people get hold of you? What's your website? What's the best way to get in contact to work with you?
So yeah, my website is bodymind-solutions.co.uk. You can email me at Sandra at bodymindSolutions. Sandra at bodymind-solutions.co.uk. I've got this little hyphen in the middle.
And you're happy to connect with people on LinkedIn and
Oh
places like
yeah,
that?
absolutely. Yeah, look me up on LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook, Body Mind Solutions on Facebook, so you can message through that as well. Yeah, the more people that connect and want to share what we're talking about. So if there's any
Yeah,
other therapists out there that want to collaborate with sharing the message, or any other people that might be prospective clients that need some help, do get in touch.
you've heard it here. Look up Sandra, get onto the website. If you feel that you might be needing some help, or someone that might need some help, and for me, a special one out to the guys listening. Honestly, just do it. Just start talking and start sharing some of these things, and you will feel so much better for it. Yeah, I mean, thank you very much. I mean, is there any final words from you, sir? Anything you want to say? Any final words of wisdom or thanks or anything like that?
Oh goodness. Well, like I said, thank you for inviting me along. And I would just say to people, if you're not in a place that you like to be, or that you feel that you're happy with, then do look at finding some support to get you to a different place, because it is possible. And actually, like you said, it is actually quite an easy process once you have got the right support around you.
Definitely. I think those are some very, very excellent words to finish on. So thanks again, Sandra. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm definitely going to let you get back on, and I definitely want to know what all these exciting news is coming. So please do keep us posted and stay in touch. So thanks ever so much for coming on. It's been brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you. Really enjoyed chatting. Thank you. It's been great.